direction and allow them to really get some of those early game macro plans off the floor.
Well, let's find out how they start cooking some of those early game plans as we are into the draft. The Jace, you know, it's been a common ban. I am, however, a little sad to see the Ambessa and Malphite eliminated by NIP, although it is clear from this that they have done their research.
A lot of jungler bans being thrown our way, but Varus crucially is the one that's left open, so I wonder if NIP, obviously, like you said, Hoya being able to play this in the top lane does make it a very potent flex, so I do like that they just immediately snag that one up as a potential blind here, and are going to immediately get ThunderTalk to second guess where this pick could be going. I wouldn't be surprised if ThunderTalk, though, maybe just decide to ignore that for now and go for a mid-jungle duo. Yeah, something like the Azir, potentially pair that up with a Wukong as well.
Yeah, the only thing that the Varus really does right now is dissuade you from picking a straight-up Scion in the top lane and just making sure that you have a neutralizing lane. The Junhao being picked up right now, a nice pairing with the Azir, as you talked about, the mid-jungle duo really potent now out of ThunderTalk, which could just lead us straight into what we were talking about in the pregame. Sejuani for Guwon, though. And a Yone?
Yeah. So immediately,
happy birthday.
I was going to say maybe there's some flex potential for the Sej as well, as top lane Sejuani did get a little bit of a buff in Season 16, but given that it's paired up with the Yone, you really wanting to make use of that synergy between the two champions. I imagine that Sej will just be stuck in the jungle and paired up with Care. So this is exciting. I mean, we talked about Care and his ability to be a menace in the laning phase on the same track as Heru, but now we're actually going to have to see if that praise does come through, because this is a champion who can be really, really strong in the laning phase if he finds those correct angles.
Seems like both teams know that they need to pick a top laner, or at least are thinking about it. NIP still toying with the idea of putting the Varus in topside, because they're eliminating things that might otherwise do well into the Varus, but Rumble being taken out by ThunderTalk, also indicative of the fact that they believe NIP have yet to pick their top laner.
Yeah, NIP still going to, keep that flex of the Varus open, but I guess looking at a role that we know for certain NIP still have to pick, which is the support role, I wouldn't hate if we have something that pays a little bit more attention to the roaming aspect of the game, D. I think like Bard actually might have some value here. It's a decent pairing with the Varus as well, if they do in fact give that pick over to Assum, and the Bard would just allow Zhuo to have a lot more impact toward that mid lane, get Care further ahead, and really start to continue snowballing this Yone here and against this Azir.
I might be bad at League of Legends, but right now, watching the support about to be locked in by ThunderTalk, I have to imagine that NIP will be mightily tempted towards just slamming a Renekton up topside. It's going to be a pretty nice lane. There's not a whole lot that you can do to straight up take Renekton out. Hoya's played the champion before and should be able to take up a lot of space on it. This feels like a slam dunk that TT can't really counter with pick 5.
And now we're seeing some AD carry hovers here from NIP, so it might legitimately just be, Hoya going for that Varus top lane. You're going to be forced to blind pick a top laner either way here as NIP, but I am interested if this does go and end up being Varus, which it will. Jhin locked in, what Keshi's response is going to be, and the Bard will be locked in, so we are going to be expecting a lot of attention by Zhuo paid toward that mid lane. And now this is really time for Keshi to maybe fight fire with fire. We can see a lot of these more aggro picks being hovered.
Okay.
And Yasuo locked in against Yone, the Wind Brother matchup, Dia, to open us up here on the night.
I am very excited to see when these two eventually clash. Now, the Yasuo being picked into the Varus as well, a very potent counter pick.
Yes.
Keshi should feel very, very comfortable on the top side, and this is what I was worried about from NIP. They don't end up transitioning to a blindable top laner, and instead now have a very squishy composition with a whole lot of damage directed at them.
Yeah, this is a game where I'm really looking at the top side. Obviously, Ryan is going to have those bullet times be a factor in a lot of the 5v5s, but I think that it's just really important for Junhao and Keshi to be linking up essentially at all times. And crucially, I think that this actually circumvents some of the worries that we might have for Keshi, particularly around those team fights where we said, all right, it's very difficult for him to link up with the rest of his team. He's usually not there when the fight is actually started. Well, guess what? There's a ton of knockups on the side of ThunderTalk. If they can get those, then all Keshi has to do is click R. He can immediately kind of leap to the fight and join up with the rest of his team from that range to get the ultimate off. So there are definitely easier ways for Keshi to initiate himself into the fight than just straight up walking at the enemy team, because there are so many knockups to provide him that way to ult into a team fight. So I think this is super cool from ThunderTalk. I think that we have been seeing this team really try and get their solo laners in a position where they can kind of flex in the first 10 to 15 minutes of the game, and they've been able to do that, but we have rarely seen them transition. I think that this is a comp that needs to be transitioning this early game pressure power, or this power pressure, into something meaningful in the team fights, because Yasuo has so many ways to be able to access those 5v5s. So exciting draft from ThunderTalk and NIP as well.
Perfect game for a lot of confidence to come out of Junhao as well. With the Junhao, he actually should be able to assassinate most members of NIP with relative ease. Very curious how this top lane is going to go at the same time. Anything standing out to you in terms of the rune choices right now? It looks, I don't know, not as crazy as the draft to me.
No, nothing too out of the ordinary as far as keystones go, but I will highlight the summoner spells. Keshi opting for that exhaust, I think, is actually super duper valuable in a game like this. You look at this entire top side, and that summoner spell can really do wonders at being able to dissuade NIP's advance and going aggressive. You know, Hoya immediately goes in for a trade with that ultimate, and then that Q is going to do a lot less damage. The Yone as well is going to get heavily affected by the exhaust as well. So I like that coming out from him. Gives him a little bit more power in the dueling. That's why you're going to pick Yasuo here, as we can already see Keshi is just not letting Hoya breathe.
Gonna drop the exhaust early as well. The extra damage actually forcing Hoya to flash, and that's gonna be a teleport expended as well. Single summoner spell for what we can say pretty confidently is going to be 2. Care goes for an aggressive trade onto Heru though, and it's a nicely timed one because Heru had won the previous trade pretty handily, and you need to have some damage laid down as Yone to feel confident stepping up in this lane.
Yeah, same goes for the Yasuo, and that's exactly what Keshi did in the 1v1. So the Wind Brothers getting it done in the laning phase so far, but it seems like neither jungler, as we are catching up with their tempo of the game, neither one of them really concerned with the top side half of the map, instead just pathing toward this bot lane. And again, I don't expect a ton to be happening here, but I think just off of resets might be a angle where we can start to see some looks from them to affect the map. Is already Guwon done with his first clear, and Junhao is actually done with his super duper late. He hasn't even finished up his red buff as the Xin Zhao. So yeah, Guwon is just going to get an easy crab secure, and this is actually going to put the Xin Zhao really far behind as far as tempo goes. If he actually decides to go for that topside crab, he'll be wasting another 15 to 20 seconds. Meanwhile, Guwon will be able to use that to maybe affect this top lane matchup.
Ooh, he's spotted doing it as well, and Junhao's just pinged that he does want to go for the scuttle, so that delay could really hurt, especially because Guwon has just hit his first back and could brawl for this, has full information that the Xin Zhao is about to be there, and has lane priority with Care in the mid lane.
Yeah, but I think he'll be maybe a bit too late. Yeah, that crab is going to be secured now by Junhao, but I mean, look at the Xin Zhao's positioning right now. He's kind of just waiting for his camps to respawn. He has yet to back either, so if there ends up being a situation where the junglers do meet in a lane and are looking to actually brawl, I think the Xin Zhao is going to be a lot less relevant than we would hope a champion like Xin Zhao would be in the early phases, because that's really when you're at your strongest, where we're looking at Xin Zhao to be this guy who can get these lanes ahead in the opening minutes of the game, and so far he's very far behind as far as game pace goes.
Because of the delayed back and the second go at the clear, Nobody's really in position for the Dragons coming up at about 30 seconds. We do have a bot lane reset that has happened to attempt something, but Guwon is just sitting up top side, seeing if Keshi tries to get a little more aggressive on Hoya, but Junhao, who again still has yet to back, has chosen to invest more time up towards the top side to protect his top laner.
Guwon spotted on a ward. Is walking in completely blind here.
Does still have flash. He's going to choose to charge over the wall instead and should be relatively safe. No summoner extended, but Guwon is forced back. Hoya going below half HP as Junhao goes very, very low. Feather keeps him alive. Keshi may not be so lucky. No flash, no exhaust on this Yasuo, and no level 6 to try and recommit either. Nice wind wall, but it does not save Feather from being stunned to the wall and taken down for first blood.
Yeah. Good saves there coming out from Feather. The heal being able to save Junhao's life in that predicament, but it just kind of felt like Keshi was a little too far away from the fight. NIP were able to kind of buy space, and crucially, Zhuo gets that stun on the Bard, which allows for the re-engage by Guwon and Hoya. So it's only the support, but NIP just pulling ahead a little bit here, giving that kill over to Hoya, so now he'll be able to back and start going for these more offensive items.
If Junhao had items, this is such a different look. But as it is, Guwon is so healthy at the end of this that NIP are able to turn it around.
Yeah, this stun really means that as soon as the arrows land, I mean, Zhuo flashes, tries to get the kill. The shield saves him, but Feather expends so much time being able to save his top side that he puts himself in a bit of a tough spot. You know, like a true support does, dies for the team, but still, it just kind of felt like a bit of an over-aggressive look here from ThunderTalk. And crucially, like you said, Junhao, without that item, if he had that tunneler before, maybe it could have made the difference.
Now we'll be able to grab the second top scuttle of the game for himself. Dragon's still available, obviously not the focal point for the last few minutes, but it could start becoming one in the next 2 to 3, as our junglers, at least from the TT side, will be clearing towards bot side. Flash onto Ryan! That was a clean finish by Assum. He knows his numbers.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly wasn't sure if that final shot was actually going to kill, but Assum, like you said, my man has been brushing up on the limit testing of the Jhin damage. And, you know, I guess it's the ninja tabbies, or plated steel caps, rather, showing my age, OP, as that damage comes through. Manages to get a kill over to the Jhin and will allow for a back by him as well. Now, though, maybe TT setting up for a play on this top side. Keshi now level 6.
Hoya's got level 6 as well for a disengage, especially with the teleport coming in. Chains of Corruption actually goes kind of crazy here. Just keeps Keshi and Junhao from being able to walk forward onto him. Feather gets up to the top side, but the play's over.
Ooh, Heru looking for the shuffle. Kair just immediately snaps back, and now he's going back in.
You gotta respect the attempt. Ultimate's traded in the mid lane and up towards top side. ThunderTalk continue to be shoved under tower, not able to punish this Varus.
And you can see NIP are now just kind of walking into the jungle. Guwon still has 6, so they're just fishing for a pick a couple of seconds before these grubs, which I imagine they want to go for. When you've got double marksman, it's really important to get this objective because you have a lot more sieging power and a lot easier of a time going for those plates to collect that gold. So I think grubs having a lot more valuable for them is Junhao going in.
And notably, Junhao alone going in. You talked about this in the pregame, but this is a disjointed fight from ThunderTalk already. They still might be able to pick Guwon, as he is not going to get knocked up. Flash into the magical journey set up by Zhuo is clean again.
Yeah, they kind of bully them off here. I'm wondering if NIP want to re-engage. They still have that pick tool with Guwon's ultimate, but have to be very synergistic when they're going in, as Kair is disjointed from the rest of the team.
That's 2, maybe a third going over to ThunderTalk. Level 6 from Keshi as well. Could go for a stylish play on the Yasuo, and it's going to start one up onto Guwon, who goes over the wall immediately. Everyone dogpiles onto the Sejuani, while Heru and Kair end up going for the 1v1, and it is Heru that wins it. Up towards the top side, Hoya is now being dogpiled on, but he's winning it! One more auto would take out Feather, and yet he will fall, leaving that last Void Grub to Junhao.
Yeah, still really good fight there from ThunderTalk. Keshi's wind wall crucially blocking a lot of that re-engage that NIP wanted to go for after the initial, you know, ultimate from Guwon came out, kind of signaling the rest of NIP to start their ability to go in there. They're not able to do so. Keshi blocks all of that damage. And ThunderTalk holding the line, getting all of the grubs, and NIP still in control of this game as far as gold goes, but TT managing to get some return kills.
This Heru 1v1. Not something that we saw the entirety of, but it was a close one.
It was. And Hoya here, now kind of in a difficult spot. Can't really charge up the Q to finish off that last little bit of health that Keshi has, so has to rely on that E instead to proc the Blight stacks. And speaking of Blight stacks.
Oh. Sometimes just autoing the Yasuo in the face ends up working. That is a 3-on-1 Varus, by the way, so I would not be walking up to him.
More crucially, it's no 1-2 Yasuo. Keshi has been doing a really good job with these wind walls and these nados, being able to set up his team to re-engage the fight, and it's been getting Junhao ahead on the Xin Zhao, but I feel like this Yasuo needs to be getting some form of gold at this point. He was picked specifically to counter the double marksman comp that NIP have gone for here in game 1, and if he's not able to, you know, get that gold, or, you know, actually, I take that back. If he keeps doing this, he gets closer and closer to the 0-10 power spike.
Thank you. Yes, I was thinking 2 down, 8 to go. This might actually be the sauce.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just a pure stats diff. I mean, this is exactly what Varus top does, right? When you've got that PTA and you're able to continue looking for those auto attack stacks and stacking that blight, that Q just does so much damage. And my man doesn't even really have that many damage items in his inventory. The best he has is a blasting wand, and he's able to do that. So goes to show just how strong the pick is. And Hoya in a position right now alongside Assum to really carry this late game once they can link up with each other. But I think the big thing for NIP looking forward is going to be getting this Varus out of the laning phase and grouped up with the rest of the team, where NIP have, like we said, felt the most comfortable.
Quieter players in this game, but Assum and Zhuo going to be really interesting to watch for NIP in the next couple of minutes, probably transition to the mid game as well, especially because they are both on more enabling picks. I know that Jin is an AD carry, but he's one of the more utility-oriented ones, and we've already seen Zhuo making several roams, all of which have actually gone relatively well. While NIP might not be winning every fight, Zhuo's looked very comfortable in the Bard, and he's going to have to look that way again, because right now, he is unfortunately magically journeying in the wrong direction. Temper Fate saves his life for a little while. Out goes Guwon to try and save Zhuo's life, but he gets shuffled in by Heru. Zhuo, 1 HP, is walking away in the Bard, and a huge Fate sealed out of care. Could turn the fight. Keshi turns it around again, though, and it is still a fight somehow going in the favor of NIP. Guwon's one, Zhuo's one. Junhao commits over the wall, finally finding the first kill for ThunderTalk, but NIP will clap right back at him, making it a 2-for-1.
And it's double kill for Hoya, but it's all set up by Care. Their fate sealed completely demolishes ThunderTalk in the choke point, and they all fall down. NIP with the victorious fight, but it didn't start out that way, crucially, Dia. It felt like everything NIP wanted to do to re-engage this fight got completely squandered. Guwon throws out his ultimate, but it gets wind-walled. They can't keep going in. Zhuo's about to get picked, and Guwon is disjointed from the rest of his team, but then Care makes the difference here.
4-man fate sealed over the wall. Now, Last Breath does go a little underappreciated. That is right on top of Hoya, but like you talked about, the 0-2 Yasuo is just not bringing the heat when it comes to landing a fight-changing Last Breath. Guwon getting away here is just the icing on the cake, because otherwise, at least this would have been an even fight.
Yeah, but now, I mean, you've got your Varus, has that Dusk and Dawn item, Guwon as well completing his Zeke, so those big item spikes coming through from some of the NIP members. A little less than 2 minutes from this dragon. It would only be the second Drake for NIP, but I do want to bring attention to it early, as we have said that ThunderTalk really struggle around these neutrals. I'm really going to be paying attention to the way these lanes are set up, and so far, I mean, just looking at how NIP are kind of grouping up around this bot side river, it's very difficult for TT to set this bot lane wave into an advantageous spot without definitely over pushing and potentially getting picked off for it. So they're kind of jailed behind this vision wall that NIP have set up, which makes it very difficult for them to actually walk into this bot side river with information gathered and with the ability to fight on even terrain.
I could see, with Rift Herald up in 20 seconds, a trade of objectives coming in. That could be a way back for TT.
Yeah, I think that is certainly something they could look at, but if Junhao gets his back canceled over and over, then it's going to be very hard to actually look to throw down that Herald onto one of these lanes. As we haven't really touched on it, but a lot of the turrets actually have been getting pretty incrementally low as far as plating has gone. Assum has actually collected so much over Ryan to the point where he now has an over 1,000 gold lead. It's only one kill for the Jhin off that early kill in the laning phase toward the Misfortune, as there might be another one.
Da boys! Rolling up in mid lane, forcing a flash. Care will be just fine down on the bot side as well, even with Feather showing up. Yone still pretty slippery when he's able to engage the fight himself. Ryan gets out of the mid lane, but top side, not such a good news story for Keshi, as it is a triple lane play that happens in just the course of a few minutes. NIP roll through the mid lane, try and make a play onto Ryan, then they walk straight on through up to the top side and kill Keshi.
And Junhao, crucially, is on the top side. I mean, you can't look for a cross-map play. There's no ability to start up this dragon because NIP, their vision game is just too strong on this part of the map. So I actually would be in support of what you said earlier, Dia, where they maybe just look to go onto the Herald, try and make it a 1-for-1. But already with the dragon being started up by NIP, they're on the clock to make that happen.
Gold lead a lot more convincing for NIP than it was in their series just yesterday as well. Almost 5,000, so this objective bounty going to be a welcome pickup for Junhao if he's able to secure it. Dragon has gone down and NIP shown no interest in trying to quickly contest a Rift Herald, so this should be a clean objective going over to them, while Care is on the precipice of picking up the bot side turret.
And while we were saying that the ThunderTalk turrets were pretty low, they were, you know, they'd seen better days. I feel like the same cannot be said for the NIP towers. They have been relatively healthy. So even if you go down and place this Herald, it's not going to immediately kill a turret, which is part of the reason why you go for it, right? To collect those plates is, I think, something that you want to do. Ideally, pre-14 minutes is when that is really, really valuable to get a Herald just for the sake of getting the gold. But now we're kind of looking at it to, you know, crush a tower for you to extend that vision line ahead of these objectives, which are going to be a lot more relevant and a lot more prevalent in the next few minutes. ThunderTalk can't really do that. So I think, really, if you want to make use of this Herald to, you know, bring down a turret, you have to be looking for a pick and immediately then use that Herald to transition it into something like taking a tower with that Rift Herald that you have got collected.
Awesome, very soon going to be able to take mid lane tower as well, and that'll be rolling around just in time for a third dragon to be grabbed by NIP should they set this up correctly. Care is sitting on a whole lot of gold right now, which, should a team fight break out, could be an issue, but as he is right now, doesn't seem to be much of one. Clen's going to be forced out of Ryan and does not get hit by the piercing arrow on the way out, so will avoid quite a bit of damage coming his way, but it is still a TT with absolutely no autonomy in this mid lane. They might try and make a play now as Junhao looks for the tip of the spear, but is not going to find any squishy targets to jump on.
And they don't need a Herald in order to bring down the remaining health on this turret. They've got the double marksman. We said that the sieging power of this comp is just far superior to anything that ThunderTalk have in their arsenal. So they will get all three outer towers pre-20 minutes, and this will just allow them so much more control around the neutrals. I feel like it's now very difficult for ThunderTalk to actually contest them at this point in the game because they have to work kind of overtime to get these lanes into advantageous positions. You can see that Keshi is trying to push in this lane, but I mean, NIP have sent the entire squad to try and stop him as they are all rushing toward the top side. Keshi won't overstay his welcome, but it just goes to show how airtight NIP have been playing this mid game, where they are not allowing any of these waves to go past a certain point.
And now that they have such an advantage, NIP, this is playing perfectly into their strengths. They are not a roster that has made their name in the LPL by doing crazy, fancy things in the mid game to get themselves ahead. This is a roster that likes to play slow, clean League of Legends, and with the gold lead as it is, slow, clean League of Legends is going to win NIP the game. It's TT that have to get creative, and that might be with the Rift Herald play on the bot side. Care does jump back with the Soul Unbound, but Rift Herald crash on this bot lane tower, not even going to happen through the Tempered Fate. It is delayed even further by Chi, and a Fate sealed onto 2. Almost takes down Heru. He will fall as Assum collects the kill and walks forward onto Junhao. Might still be able to lock him up with the help of Zhuo. Magical Journey not quite available, but TT will be lucky to get away with 2 remaining lives, but it is no Rift Herald and no mid laner.
Care's been really on point with these Fate Seals this game. Obviously, we point back to the 4-man that he managed to hit onto that topside play that really turned the game around for NIP and solidified their lead over ThunderTalk. But that 3-man allowing for an extra kill onto the TT members to go through, and they're super comfortable now. They're onto the topside, and they're just 2-manning the Baron.
They're counter-engaging. Keshi actually ults right on top of Assum, but again, these magical journeys are so clutch. Exhaust comes down onto Keshi. Assum is going to go down. And in the meantime, Baron Nashor has fallen. NIP sneak away the objective and trade for their AD carry.
And ThunderTalk finally get that synergy with the Yasuo that they have been looking for at this point 20 minutes, but it feels like it might be a little too late at this point, Dia. We were looking for that several minutes ago for you to get this Yasuo around the map, but it doesn't end up really panning out in time, in my opinion, as we do get a little bit of a replay on that bot side play. Yeah, 3-man Fate sealed. Awesome, just with that empowered auto from the Stormrazor, manages to pick up a kill, and not much more to come from that, but Baron secured for NIP on 4 members crucially, and this will, at the very least, allow them to get priority for this dragon spawning right about now, but you can see they're not focused on the dragon, they're focused on this top side and sieging these tier 2 turrets.
Yeah, I mean, we saw all 3 outer turrets fall pre-20 minutes in the favor of NIP. They keep playing like this. They might be getting all 3 inner turrets by the time the Baron is done. There is a pick for NIP that happens almost as an afterthought. They dodge the engage from Heru, and he is just stuck with nothing.
Yeah,
He's trying to come up with a metaphor, but he's got nothing.
Yeah, Heru does go down. Now Zhuo just magical journeying into the mid lane with the rest of his team. And I like this from NIP. I feel like a big decision-making factor that you can put on a lot of teams to decide if their macro is actually in a really good spot is if they decide to rush down the dragons every time off spawn, because NIP, they've got a 7,000 gold lead. They don't have to risk themselves going for things like a soul point so that they are, accelerating the game pace faster than what it actually needs to be, because then you go for a fight at soul point. If you risk losing that, you don't end up getting that soul win condition. You're not putting ThunderTalk even in a position where they can take that away from you. Air almost kills you now.
Curtain Call still might do it. One nicely placed bullet needs to be curved, and it will not hit. Ryan absorbing that for Junhao. It is, however, 2 of the 3 inner turrets that have fallen with 42 seconds left on the Baron. I smell a third coming.
Something on Keshi, but that wind wall is probably going to allow him to be safe. It just feels like NIP are unrelenting with the pressure at this point, and I do wonder when that pressure is going to be so much that TT snap and decide to go for a Hail Mary engage. They have to be careful, though, to track where the NIP members are when they actually do decide to pull the trigger, because if it's all 5 of the NIP members, it is a very easy fight for them to win.
Bullet time going to be channeled, but it will not be enough to save Heru, who makes the mistake of stepping into NIP's jungle, and I did not misspeak. That is NIP's jungle now. 23 minutes into the game off their first Baron. They have taken all 3 of the inner towers, and very soon, you have to imagine, we'll be looking at the base. There is no chance for ThunderTalk to extend outside of their own nexus and actually collect any gold. They are given only what NIP chooses to let slide.
I wonder what their plan is here as Heru maybe getting aggressed onto Junhao, proccing that Q for the knockoff.
This guy is too good at Bard, man. This guy is too good. And the stun.
Yeah, ouch. Insult to injury right there. Zhuo. That's the kind of play you throw up your mastery symbol for. You know, you drop the emotes, the mastery. Maybe you type something in all chat if you're feeling a little spicy.
Bard players are pretty chill, but you know, every once in a while you run into an all chat warrior on Bard.
You know, they're pretty chill as far as the communication goes, but you just know these guys are thinking up the most devious plans ever. Like, the mentality of these guys needs to be studied in a lab.
This could be devious.
Yep.
No Temper Fate now, but that Deadly Flourish is sure going to help. Piercing Arrow. Ooh. Oh my god, it does like 800 damage to Keshi, likely more. Ryan will be walking out into the mid lane to try and contest the wave after that, but having seen what just happened to his top laner, I'd be worried about stepping too far up.
You could see, I mean, the gold swings between each of the teams, the gold differences between each of the roles, all going up yellow. It's like a Coldplay song. Is now Care.
This is the play.
It's being 1v3'd.
This is the play. They have to pick off Care here. They forced him to use the ultimate, and they can't even touch him. The Tempered Fate is still going to catch Feather, and this Rakan is surely dead. Ninjas in Pyjamas refuse to lose even a single member.
Yeah, Care doing a really good job at exfiltrating that fight. Fate sealed away, and all the while, it was just a 4-man re-engaged by NIP. Hoya breaks open the base on the top side. ThunderTalk respawn, but with only 4 members alive. And they're going to probably call it off for now. We've got a Baron coming up in about 40 seconds. And, I mean, one of the big questions that I don't really think we got to ask Dia was, how are NIP going to handle not having the soul win condition in their clutches yet, having that Baron when it expired? What are they going to do with kind of that 3 minutes of dead time? And the answer is, not a lot has happened on the map, but everything that has happened has been NIP avoiding ThunderTalk's ability to get some gold into their pockets, and then, you know, getting some of these picks like Heru over-aggressing and looking for a play of his own. And now, 10 seconds until the Baron. I wouldn't be surprised if, just like it was before, this thing just gets ripped right off spawn.
Already, Zhuo has set up complete red side dominance in terms of vision towards the top side of the map. Feather and Junhao are going to be having a difficult task if they want to try and scout out what is going on with this Baron. And note as well that Hoya is pushing in the bot lane. So TT are on a timer. They have a limited amount of seconds to contest for vision around the Baron. That Scuttle Crab is a big mini objective for them to pick up. But Hoya, relentlessly pushing, is going to not have to contend with Heru as that back gets stopped. Hoya is going to take the tower on his own while NIP get to threaten the Baron, get to threaten to stop the bases. Heru does go back, and unfortunately, Glacial Prison will go wide. But NIP, they don't expend really anything outside of an ult for that, and that is a welcome cost to almost take down the first inhibitor tower.
Yeah, Hoya, though, sticking around on the bot side, kind of forcing Heru to catch these waves. And NIP looking for a 4v4 attempt, but no Glacial Prison from Guwon means that starting up these fights could be a little bit difficult as NIP when you don't have that Varus ultimate with you, because your Varus isn't actually with the rest of the team. ThunderTalk don't care about the Dragon. They're just going to push in the mid wave. They're going straight toward the topside river, but the Drake's already gone. The Soul's already secured. If you wanted to go for some kind of Baron cross map, it's far too late for that, ThunderTalk.
Yeah, NIP learned their lesson around this yesterday. Better not to delay taking the Dragon. Instead, they just send 2 members for that immediately. It is a full engage onto Guwon, but he is the least squishy member on all of NIP, now backed up by the entire squad. Care goes for a Fate Sealed, does not land it, but ends up in the back line, almost takes down Ryan before being eliminated himself. But the second member of ThunderTalk will fall, as it is a double kill picked up for Guwon, a double kill picked up for Hoya, and an ace for the Ninjas in Pyjamas.
Yup, and a triple for Hoya at the end there. NIP with the double marksman comp, showing their ingenuity here in game number 1 against ThunderTalk. Some fights were close, but it was all NIP from the start. It felt like they had control of the game, and they never gave that up.
walking in. They have got absolutely nothing to contend with. It started in their own lanes, but very quickly the jungle became NIPs, the base became NIPs, and now the Nexus belongs to NIP. Feather, the sacrificial lamb, as Keshi walks out to watch this one fall one more time. Not a whole lot that ThunderTalk were able to do up against the ninjas in Pyjamas. It was a coordinated and almost glacial game by NIP. For as fast as this one ended, it never felt like NIP were rushing the plays, like they were pushing themselves to make something extra happen. They took the least fancy route to the win, and that is what NIP are known for throughout this split, and it is a clean look for them in game number 1.
You know, they may have picked like the least fancy route to actually get to the win, but they chose a hell of a casting crew to do so. I mean, you've got the Varus top, you've got the Yone. This is like in that one. Have you seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, Dia?
I'm gonna lie to you and say yes, so you can tell me.
For those of you who don't remember, this is like when the gang has to travel through the cave in order to get to Omashu. Instead of just flying there, they have to like go through like a bunch of moles. They have to go through like a giant tunnel. They have to go through all of these really weird obstacles. But most importantly, they're traveling with like these very weird nomads. And I kind of feel like in this metaphor that is extremely heavy-handed and kind of forced from me, that Varus and that Yone pick were kind of the nomads. It was a very strange cast of characters to get through this journey, but they still managed to do so. And they managed to do so in definitely dominant fashion. So really a lot of credit there over to NIP, showing a different side of themselves by continuing to give Hoya some of these carries. I think that this is a new thing for them, and I'm interested to see if they continue that onwards in game number 2, or if they want to go back to the style that we kind of talked about them cultivating in the pre-show, which is put Hoya on like a side laner, put Hoya on a tank, and allow the rest of the team to really do their thing in the carry department.
Yeah, this was a bit of an odd draft from NIP. The fact that they picked up the Varus and just let that slide into the top side, despite not having counter pick and actually giving it up, on paper, the Yasuo-Varus matchup should have gone a lot better for ThunderTalk, and while it didn't, I still find myself in a little bit of an odd place about this draft. NIP, they did whip out the Sejuani. I'm really happy to see that that now works for them. It's great to have another pick that Guwon can comfortably pilot.
Yeah.
But looking at this draft in isolation, I am a little bit weirded out by what we saw from NIP. It really made sense in game 1 yesterday up against a Sion. Drafting the Varus top blind and forcing it there may be a little bit odd from NIP now.
It definitely was a risky play, and initially you and I were kind of talking about the downsides of the Varus blind, because the Yasuo immediately had like a really favorable trade into it, dropped the exhaust, and kind of forced that flash immediately out of Hoya. But then I feel like with the interference and the help of Zhuo, that Bard roaming up like we said he needed to in order to, you know, put this Varus into a favorable position, as well as Guwon doing that, it kind of put Keshi on this Yasuo super far behind. I mean, this is, I think, the first Tier 1 global Yasuo of 2026, and it did not end up panning out for Keshi. So this counter pick not managing to kind of hit the ground running, and Hoya, despite the rough start, still managing to get a ton of damage, the most damage of his team, in fact. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's candidate for player of the game, frankly, Dia. I think he did very well on this pick.
Yeah, especially in a, like we said, strange place to draft it. The fact that he did manage to perform so well is likely what made this game look so easy for NIP. And let this be a reminder to all of you in solo queue, it really doesn't matter what you pick. If you go 6-0, your team's going to be just fine. I do want to give honors to him as well, though. Zhuo played out of his mind on this Bard.
I agree.
We talked about Hoya and Zhuo getting put in the backpack sort of, you know, good-naturedly before the broadcast, but man, oh man, with Hoya putting up the carry performance that he did, not just in this game, but in yesterday's game, and Zhuo's Bard looking as clean as it did, we actually, like, if anybody is thinking these players are genuinely being put in a backpack, no, bro, it's not. Yeah. That's not real.
No, I think really for NIP, like, this is a team that I think has worked like a well-oiled machine, and we haven't brought it up a lot on this broadcast, but we have to keep kind of reiterating it every time we see them perform this synergistically. This is a full rebuild. Like, this is a complete overhaul of what NIP had last year. These are 5 players brought in to perform who have basically never played with one another in the past, and they look like a team who has had that synergy down on the level of some of these other squads like EDG, who, you know, retained 4 out of 5 of their members from the 2025 season. So I have to give a lot of credit over to NIP, not just the individual performances coming out from them in the laning phase and being able to do well against their counterparts, but also linking up and being able to look really, really effective as a unit, because despite the full rebuild, is something that I'm very impressed with from this team. And it's one of the reasons why I'm really excited to see what the ceiling of a squad like this looks like, because if this is kind of if this is closer to the floor, if this is just winter split, I'm optimistic for how high this team could end up going, because this being just the start is a very exciting thing to say.
And the really nice thing about NIP as it is right now is that they clearly have a great idea of how they want to play the macro game, and they are experimenting bit by bit with what else works in addition. We mentioned the Pantheon that we saw yesterday in their series against EDG, and while that didn't go very well, they continue to experiment in the jungle, still having some comfort picks up. For Guwon, they instead chose to go with the Sejuani, which worked really well. You predicted this perfectly. I have no arguments here. Hoya, second top lane Varus, second player of the game.
Yup, and I like it. I mean, kind of started off rough, right? Like we said, you know, having to burn that flash early into the Yasuo matchup, and I will give, like, a lot of credit over to Zhuo and Guwon for bailing him out of that early game predicament. But after he got bailed out and the lane was a little bit more equalized with the Varus v Yasuo, he did a really good job at being able to play those fights. And not only was he playing those fights well, but even when he wasn't a part of them, he was applying pressure on side lanes. Like, there were a few times where NIP would be, like, going for a 4v4 after getting a pick, and then the one member missing from the NIP squad would be Hoya, and he would just be splitting in another lane, applying pressure in another lane, getting turrets and gold in another lane, and being able to build up his item advantage over the rest of ThunderTalk. So constant pressure, whether that was in fights, whether that was in a side lane, and a really good showing from the top laner of NIP on the Varus top.
Yeah, you could really see how one lent a helping hand to another, and that was returned in kind with Guwon and Zhuo coming up the top side, and then them benefiting from the map pressure that Hoya was able to give them later as such a monstrous Varus. And if you want to lend us a helping hand here on the LPL English, the best way to do that is through our coffee. Coffee is the best way to support the LPL English project because the vast majority of your contributions actually go directly to the show. While a lot of the initial payment that we receive goes directly into upgrading the broadcast, a huge part of it also goes to making sure that our on-air talent and content creators are compensated for their time. Subscribe to our coffee link that is in the chat. We should be putting it there right now to unlock perks like early access to content and the ability to ask interview questions for our unique on-site interviews. Our coffee really is the #1 way to help support the show. Be like Hoya, be like Guwon, and Zhuo. Go check out the coffee while we jump to a very short break before game number 2.